Hi, everybody. I hope you're well today. Today is segment 8, Rhetoric. We're now moving into the larger portions of this whole series. And what I mean by that is the first 7 were like your set of paints, different colors, different paintbrushes, or your tools to carve a sculpture, or your threads to make your great tapestry. Now we're putting it all together. Rhetoric is the art of oratory. Big word, means the art of speaking. When you're acting, you're not talking, you're speaking, and there's a difference. This is the study of principles and rules formulated by critics of ancient times, the skill in effective use of speech. Why I feel this is important is because when Shakespeare went to school, one of the courses he had was Latin. Every day they had to learn 20 Latin derivatives and come in and recite them. The other thing that they had to do was memorize, learn the great Greek speeches and get up and deliver them in a rhetorical way. They just could not recite them. They had to make them a creative argument or an imaginative debate. If you really want to learn more about the art of rhetoric, there is a fantastic book called The Garden of Eloquence, a rhetorical bestiary. This book was published in 1577, which was around Shakespeare's time. So Shakespeare understood the art of rhetoric, and he used it in all of his speeches, as do almost all great writers use in their text. Shakespeare's rhetoric is creative argumentation and imaginative debate. You do this by comparing and contrasting ideas or by agreeing and disagreeing through seeking questions and discovering answers. An example that I'd like to start with will be in your handout, Much Ado About Nothing between Beatrice and Benedict. Benedict, in the famous scene after the wedding, sees Beatrice weeping and he says, "Lady Beatrice, have you wept all this while?" A question. We said questions open people up. Her response is, "Yea, and I will weep a while longer." She agrees with him. He says, "I will not desire that." He disagrees with her. She says, "You have no reason. I do it freely." She disagrees with him again. And then he says, "Surely I do believe your fair cousin is wrong." Is as long as you are comparing and contrasting, agreeing or disagreeing, you're playing an action. This is important. You always want, for clarity's sake, to play actions when you're doing any text, any script. At this point, when Benedict says, "Surely I do believe your fair cousin is wronged," we have discussed the word fair in previous segments. I said it has multiple meanings. When we did Ophelia and Bawdy, it meant one thing. Here, it also means he believes that Hero is innocent. And her response is, "Ah, comma, how much might the man deserve of me that would write her?" Little word, ah. Ah is different than O. O is a release of energy and emotion. Ah, light bulb going off. And then we talked about Mae West. She does her famous M's. How much might the man, deserve of me that would write her? This is rhetoric. It's doing the compare contrast. It's doing the agree disagree. It's clever, it's witty, it's verbal repartee. It's all the things that we have discussed about in all of the earlier segments. When you're doing rhetoric, I would like you to think of a simple formula of 1 plus 1 equals 2. Again, going up that dramatic arc, the end stop that you have in the punctuation segment. The example that I'm going to give you will be on this handout, and it says, "If music be the food of love, play on." So the first, if music be the food of love, the equals to is play on. The lines lift. They lift because that is the way text leads you somewhere. It takes you somewhere for the clarity. The meat is always at the end. What it's all about, the meat, whatever you want to call it, is the equals to. When you don't know what your equals to is, you're literally doing 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and you get samey or you get boring, and you do not want to do that ever. Phrasing with Shakespeare always goes from punctuation to punctuation. We've talked about that. No pausing or breathing in between because it breaks the thought and it will break up the clarity. Why do we creatively argue and imaginatively debate? This should be a question you ask yourself when you are dissecting your text. One of the reasons is to figure out a plan or decide a course of action, to react to a series of events and reasons through them. Assess your critical situation. Share a plan or an insight with the audience. Give us a reason for what we are doing or not doing. Share what you think of your life situation and what it's all about. You can add to this list. Again, all of these handouts are in your segment and you can read along. If you have questions, you can also, if you have my book, Willpower, you can look at day 17. It goes into it with a lot of thought. Lifting the line is extremely important, and there's two wonderful voice and speech ladies in England, Cicely Berry and Patsy Rodenberg. They all talk about lifting the line. If music be the food of love, play on. You lie in faith, for you are called plain Kate. The lines lift. I believe that the lines lift because there was a great series in PBS about English language, and the British Isles are very rocky and hilly and mountainous, and those people always were stepping up, and over the millions and millions of years, they produced an upward inflection. This country is flat, and our inflection is either flat or downward. We said an upward inflection gives the audience the feeling of optimism and curiosity. A downward inflection gives them the feeling of depression, and you don't want to do that. An example of what I'm talking about and what I encourage you not to do is on this handout, and it's called tromboning. I'll take the famous chorus from Henry V, "Oh, for a muse of fire." It's the first line of the play, and it gets the audience's attention. If you go, "Oh, for a muse of fire," you're tromboning. In England and Ireland and Scotland, their training is to start small and go big. "Oh, for a muse of fire." Again, that will reinforce the 1 plus 1 equals 2. I'd like to give you a second example of rhetoric. And again, it'll be on your rhetorical examples handout. And this one is the famous Kate Petruchio, which I know you just can't get enough of. Petruchio says, "Good morrow, Kate, for that's your name, I hear." And Kate says, "Well, have you heard, but something hard of hearing? They call me Katerine, that to talk of me." She disagrees with him. Then he disagrees with her. He says, "You lie in faith, for you are called plain Kate, and bonny Kate, and sometimes Kate the cursed, but Kate, the prettiest Kate in all of Christendom." He gives her his 17 different Kates of why she's Kate and not Catherine. Again, this is an imaginative debate, a creative argumentation. It's all about the name Kate, which Petruchio proves at the end of the scene. He knows how to say her full name. He says, "Marry, so I mean, sweet Catherine, in thy bed." He says her full name. I have found in the play, when he says her full name, there's a very specific action that he's after. When he calls her Kate, it's a different action. And at the end of the play, he ends it with a very famous line, which became the musical, "Now kiss me, Kate." he is letting her know that when he wants something from her, he can be polite and formal. And if she's not going to be polite and formal back to him, he will call her Kate, which is informal, a title you have to earn. The next thing I would like you to think about in rhetoric is you have a series of questions that you must ask yourself. How does the title of the play affect the character and the performance? Comedy of errors. Everything in comedy of errors must be an error, otherwise it won't be the comedy. Another one that we discussed was Twelfth Night, or What You Will. What we didn't say in the Shakespeare's bawdy section, because I'm not sure everybody will watch the bawdy section, is Twelfth Night was 12 nights after Christmas, and it was famous in England for the night of pranks. There's a lot of pranks that happen in Twelfth Night. What You Will, we read Sonnet 135, and we decided that will meant genitalia. So Twelfth Night, or What You Will, meaning if you want boys, have boys. If you want girls, have girls. Whatever you want, Shakespeare's saying, in Twelfth Night, the night of pranks, it's yours. So you must know what the title means. The next thing again is it prose or is it verse, and what's the difference? My character's type. Am I an antagonist, a protagonist, a leading lady, a leading man, a character actor, a stock character? Am I high status, low status? High status, low status is very well explained in Keith Johnstone's book, Improv. High status means that you have a lot of power. You don't need to move a lot, nor do you need to talk a lot. Your words are very specific. Low status means you smile a lot, you bend a lot, you do things to please people. They do not mean good or bad. Then you must ask yourself, is this scene a life-death situation, a dream, a fantasy, or a nightmare? Beatrice and Benedict, it starts out as Beatrice's nightmare, and it ends up fulfilling her dream. She's dreaming to find somebody to kill Claudio, and she gets it, Benedict. You then need to, with rhetoric, ask yourself, is the scene exposition? Is the writer just giving me the facts? Then just deliver them. Or is it character development? Character development will be specific things that your character says and does. It can be verbal language and it can be body language. Petruchio does the 17 Ks, so when you're repeating things, normally that says character development, but at the end he says, myself am moved to woo thee for my wife. His moving is a stage direction, his wooing is a stage direction. That's character development. Or is it pure entertainment? The best example of pure entertainment, of course, is in A Midsummer Night's Dream. The last scene where the mechanicals do the play within the play. Shakespeare might have, as a young boy, seen a traveling troupe perform Pyramus and Thisbe, and they probably didn't do it very well. So he puts it at the end of his play. However, I believe that the audience is allowed to mainly watch and only partially listen because of its pure entertainment. So you need to look at your scenes beat by beat and say, am I doing this? Then you must ask yourself in rhetoric, does the playwright, in this case Shakespeare, want us to just listen, watch and listen, or just watch? When we did Speak the Speech and the Height of Language, we gave very thick language, and we said, you should just stand and deliver. That's meaning the audience just needs to listen. Watch and listen is when you can do staging and movement and the audience won't lose the thought or what's being said. Just watch. An example again could be the play within the play in A Midsummer Night's Dream. If the line is simple, the next thing, it's a fifth grader can understand it and you just say it. Petruchio says, good morrow, Kate, for that's your name I hear. We said earlier, he's just saying hello. However, his here is Heare, the long version. I think he might at the very end be going, his point of view might, the unspoken is, isn't it? Good morrow, Kate, for that's your name I hear. Who knows? You have to make a choice. Or if it's simple, it doesn't have lots of repetitions, similes, metaphors, antithesis, irony. It's not packed with that. If it's complex, it is. It has lots of repetitions, similes, metaphors, antithesis, irony, wit, jokes, bawdy meanings, verbal conceits. It's filled, is full. Remember, we said complex means rich and full. Can a fifth grader understand it? Just say it. Are the words Anglo-Saxon? Are they short? Are they visceral? Staccato or legato? One syllable, monosyllables? Are the words Latin, polysyllabic? Then they're more legato. They'll sing themselves. They're more elevated situation. You're working things out. Your character, specific characteristics need actions that will determine why you are using polysyllabic words. And we did this with King Lear. Is your line a question? Then it must have an upward inflection. Is it straightforward statement, an answer which fills people up? Then it just goes straight. Or if it's the end, it can drop off. Downward inflections give the audience, we said, the feeling of depression and pessimism, where the upward inflections give the audience the feelings of optimism and curiosity. Upward inflections are exactly what nursery rhymes do. When you were young, if someone read a nursery rhyme to you, you heard, "Hi diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle." They probably didn't say, "Hi diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle." Little Jack Horner sat in a corner. They lift. They're taking you somewhere. They're propelling the action forward. Choose your inflection according to what your character is saying and doing in the moment. Remember, clarity and humanity. I would like to do one more example of rhetoric, and it will be Ophelia's final speech in the famous nunnery scene. She says to the audience in a soliloquy, "Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown." I believe that massive clues are in first lines. Hamlet had 3 prose speeches in a row. Shakespeare did this on purpose to give him the freedom to do what was ever necessary. The first one, the first nunnery speech, I believe the action is to save Ophelia, tell her, "Get out of here. This is a bad place. Go away." However, at the end, Hamlet hears something or sees something, and it ends with, "Where is your father?" A simple question. He's looking at his best friend, his lover, the person that is most dear to him, right in the eye. And she says, "At home, my lord." He knows this is a lie. I believe his world is now destroyed and shattered. Then Shakespeare gives him 2 more prose speeches. The next one, I feel he punishes Ophelia with the purpose of making who's ever behind the arras to come out to save her. But they don't. I believe the third one, he takes it even further and he goes to attack who is behind the arras. And Ophelia has these very bombastic lines like, "Oh, heavenly powers, save him." She stops Hamlet by warning these people, and she also warns who's behind the curtain, and he takes that further as her turning against him. She then has after "Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown," and he, I believe, abused her in the final speech, maybe thrown her to the ground or worse, she should say something like, "How dare he treat me that way?" But she says, "Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown." To me, that translates as, he's having a bad day. He's really not a bad guy. Then she gives us examples: the courtiers, soldiers, scholars, eye, tongue, sword, the expectancy and rose of the fair state, the glass of fashion, the mold of form. She goes on and on and on about how he's the best here. Why? After he's mistreated her. Then, at the end stop, she changes gears and she says, "Have I of ladies most deject and wretched, that sucked the honey of his music vows, now see that noble and most sovereign reason, like sweet bells jangled out of tune and harsh, the unmatched form and feature of blown youth, blown with ecstasy. She again, for me, says she understands the why he's mistreated her. Then she says, "Oh, woe is me, to have seen what I have seen, see what I see." This to me is a speech about someone who is an abused person, who makes excuses when people mistreat them. The last line I would ask you to really, really think about. Oh, woe is me. Two O's. We said O is a release of energy and emotion, or it's double entendre. Then she says, to have seen what I have seen, see what I see. Four C's in that. Could be, is she talking about the hidden C? My feeling is possibly Ophelia is pregnant. And she's saying she's really in a state now. Is her lover has just broken off with her and left her. Later on in the play, her father gets murdered and her brother's away. She has absolutely no one. And for me, this is reasons why Ophelia goes mad, or at least plays mad, and drowns. And maybe she drowns herself because she has no way out. There's lots of possibilities that you need to think about. The last thing that I want to talk about is you must, after you've done all of this work with rhetoric, say to yourself, is your line a disclosure, meaning exposition? Are you just disclosing information? Is your line a discovery in the moment? Audiences love discoveries. Are you fresh minting something? Have you just found this out? You just made this up? Remember, we said descriptions are all disclosures. Is your line a decision? Have you reached a conclusion by adding up the points in the scene and or the speech? These things, disclosures, decisions, discoveries, can change in the middle of a line. Who is the chaser and who is the chasee? With Kate and Petruchio, who's chasing who? And does it change mid-scene? Who's the seducer and who's the seducee? What does my name mean? Let's again use Phoebe. We said meant moon and all that goes along with it. You must also break your scene into your pasto or your beats: preparation, attack, struggle, turning point, outcome. If you have more than 5 beats, it's okay, because then they're mini beats and it'll only make you more specific. You also need to make sure that every beat has a different verb. Then you must say, does Shakespeare begin the scene in the beginning, the middle, or the end? In Comedy of Errors, Luciana starts, and may it be that you have quite forgot a husband's office. She's starting in the middle. Everything that happened before we don't know, but one of the most important things in script analysis is you must know what happened just prior to your scene. To understand the physical and the ritual and the titles, understand that when you change from you to thou, that it's a big gear shift change. Again, with the Beatrice and Benedict, Benedict starts out with, Lady Beatrice, have you wept all this while? And he ends with, by my sword, Beatrice, thou lovest me. And he, in that scene, also calls her Sweet Beatrice. So he changes from the you to the thou to Sweet Beatrice, which is a term of endearment. The art of rhetoric, for me, is going to be in anything that you do, whether it's theater, TV, or film. Writers are going to want you to bring clarity and richness to their words, and it is, again, for me, done through rhetoric. I would encourage all of you to Google and or YouTube famous rhetorical speeches. I think the best speakers that I have encountered in my lifetime, First would be Martin Luther King Jr. You can Google or YouTube the famous I Have a Dream speech. You should really experience the way that this man could talk and speak and move a crowd. Second, I would encourage you to look at speeches from the late President John F. Kennedy. Next, I would say Michelle Obama, and there's plenty of her speeches. And then President Barack Obama. I feel she is our best speaker now. That's my personal opinion. When the Greeks did theater, it was an Olympic event. There was a word that we have found that was connected to their plays, and the word is ekstasis, and it translates into ecstasy. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every time we did a performance that the audience experienced ecstasy? Please practice the techniques in the art of rhetoric. That concludes today's segment. The next segment, we will do Shakespeare to Stanislavski. I would like to finish with my quote. From the Scottish play, "Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the o'erfraught heart and bids it break." Learn the magic of your words. Have a good day. See you next time.